Welcome to Elegance in Every Step. I'm your maitre d', Mary Postlethwaite. We hope you've come famished. We've prepared the finest table just for you. Our special today is Hungry, a dish we've been perfecting for 21 seasons now. Your table is alongside another guest. It might feel a bit unusual. However, we encourage you to dive in and hear their story. Today, we're serving up a conversation about craving the right things in life. Sit back, enjoy a complimentary appetizer. Your host, Neil Matthews, will be along shortly to guide you through today's meal. Bon appetit.
Welcome into Other People's Shoes. As you know, I am your host, Neil Matthews. Thank you so much for joining me today. I don't know about anybody else. When I hit this time of the month, this November month that we're in now, welcome into November, by the way. It makes me a little more thankful. It makes me perhaps a little more grateful. I'm trying this gratitude thing. Anyone else have their hand up on the gratitude wagon? Are you along with me in the journey? It's like the Oregon Trail of old. Hopefully nobody gets dysentery and they die along the journey. It's interesting to me because about a year ago now, my wife and I moved into a new home to us. So now it's been a little while and we're living the farm life. My sister-in-law, Jamie, has quite a few farm animals. There's a donkey on the property. There's a couple of horses. There's chickens and bunnies and all kinds of stuff. And there's this alfalfa field behind me that my brother-in-law has leased out. And so I shared a while back that I went and got cowboy boots because I'm really, truly trying to embrace that country living. And lo and behold, through the power of technology, we meet an amazing man that I cannot wait to hear more about. Help me welcome in my new friend, Greg. Greg, how are you today?
Oh, very good. And a lot of people call me Farmer Greg.
Well, see, it's like Green Acres, right? Green Acres,
Is the place to be. Oh my God, we're dating ourselves.
I don't even know the show. I just know the song and the jingle.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, I know the show. So
my life is now a little bit of Green Acres. We lived in the city. You talked about in our preliminary little chitty chat that we had moments ago about how you had lived in Arizona for like 54 years, 55 years-ish, and then have now relocated, in my mind, to the best state in the union. And that, of course, being the 13th state of the United States. North Carolina.
Yes. It was quite the journey, that is for sure. I lived in the same neighborhood in Phoenix, Arizona for 54 years. For the last 32 years I was there, I lived at the Urban Farm, which was a house that I created. It was right in the middle of Phoenix. It was a third of an acre, 80 feet by 160 feet deep, 80 feet wide, 160 feet deep, 80 fruit trees, chickens in the backyard, edible landscape, rainwater and gray water harvesting, the whole 9 yards. So that was right in the middle of Phoenix.
And it's amazing to me that being in the desert, you were still able to have this nourishing, flourishing farm. To me, that's fascinating. I've never been to Phoenix. In fact, I don't think I've ever been to Arizona. To me, that already intrigues me how that was so successful. And now you've basically relocated, started fresh. Now you're in the Tar Heel State, and which is amazing to me because I don't know if you could tell, I might just a little bit have a little bit of an affinity, a little bit of love affair with all things North Carolina. You might have gathered that.
I get that for sure.
In fact, outside my house, you can't see it. Outside my house, actually, United States flag, and then below that is a North Carolina state flag. Is that weird? I'm serious. I'll send you a picture if you want photo proof.
Love that.
Yeah, I was born in Jacksonville. Camp Lejeune is in Jacksonville. Therefore, I am a Tar Heel by birth, as some would say. So there you go. So help me with this, Greg. We love to lead off every show truly with this question, and that's this, is what size shoes do you wear?
When I'm wearing shoes, I wear size 11.
Okay, that's easy for me to fit in. I wear also an 11, 10 and a half, 11, depending on the style and brand, which of course leads into my next question, which is probably my favorite question of all. What style and brand does Greg like to wear the most?
Oh, well, I was so happy with myself when I answered this question in my head. And then I listened to a podcast and you had another guest on back in January or February, answered my answer, and that's bare feet.
Yeah, that's okay. Listen, we somewhat sort of don't throw rocks at those that want to rock the bare feet. I myself can't get around that. I don't know why. I just look down at my feet. Being a guy of faith, I always think, so God, that's what he did with all the leftover parts. He wasn't sure what to do, and he created feet out of what was left over. That's my view. There's no biblical evidence that supports that. I truly believe that.
Well, there you go.
Well, help us with this. This whole idea of hungry, just to help you and maybe help those that have been on the journey with us that maybe have forgotten from week to week. But a while back, I did a 3-day fast. I've done a couple of 2-day fasts. And most recently, I've done a 4-day fast just to help. No food, just strictly water. I allow black coffee because, well, hello, it's black coffee. You have to have that in the morning. But no hazelnut flavoring like I would normally have. I just strictly stick to the black coffee. But during that, came up with this idea because I was hungry. I know, shocking to some. But I was hungry during the fast. And I thought, man, what is it that I'm really hungry for? And I started to list off all the things I'm hungry for. Sherbet ice cream. I'm hungry for maybe some real coffee, some better coffee. I'm hungry for pizza. I'm hungry for all of these burgers, French fries, maybe a Wendy's Frosty, whatever. I started in my mind, I want these things. So I'm wondering for you, when you think about being hungry, what comes to mind, and maybe how does that weave into your story being the urban farmer that you are?
I've done a few fasts. They went really slow. I was going to ask you if your fasts felt fast or felt slow, because that is one place to look from. I approach food in a very particular way, and that is that food grows everywhere, so we should be able to just go out and harvest food. When I'm hungry, I look to my landscape. In fact, last night, our meal came primarily out of the garden. We had an entire salad with about a half a dozen different kinds of greens in it that came primarily out of the garden. I'll tell you, there's nothing better than raising food, going out and harvesting it, and knowing what's in it, knowing that it's picked at its peak of ripeness. The taste is just amazing. You can see by my shirt, I do a fruit tree education program in Phoenix, Arizona. I've been doing it for 25 years there. Boy, I've spoiled myself because I can no longer eat a store-bought peach. You grow a peach on a peach tree and you walk up to that peach tree and peak of ripeness and you snag a peach and it drops in your hand off the tree. And when you touch it, it gives a little bit, and then you take a bite and it splashes down the front of your shirt and the taste makes your toes tingle. That's what I'm talking about. When I think hungry, that's where I go with it.
Did 12-year-old you envision this urban farmer that you are now? Or where did that kind of genesis, that growth maybe take place, that evolutionary story for you? For some people, they grew up wanting to be baseball players, maybe an accountant. Maybe nobody wants to be an accountant. Some aspire to be astronauts and things of that nature, maybe a Marine. For you, what was that moment that maybe you can pinpoint that said, nope, that's the path, that's the journey I'm supposed to be on?
I'm 15 years old. It's 1975. I'm in my biology class in 8th grade, and we're supposed to write a paper. And my paper, written in pencil, was how we were overfishing the oceans. To this day, I don't know where that came from. Prior to that, when I was 9 and 10 years old, I had a paper out. So this was late 60s. I had a paper out, and I was very interested in fish aquariums. By the time I was 15 years old, I was actually running my first business. It was called Aquatic Maintenance Service, and I was cleaning, servicing, and building fish ponds as a 15, 16-year-old. Well, I wasn't quite building them at 15 or 16. I was building them at 18. I learned that skill when I was 15, so in 1975. Impetus for me to do that was I was very, very interested in fish farming, raising fish for people to eat. In my late teens and early 20s, I was actually raising fish in fish ponds for people to eat. I tell people, pretty sure I was born with this. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. Most of the time, it's a gift. Some of the time, it's a curse because I can't get away from it. In fact, in 1984, I stopped doing all of that stuff. I started a technology company. I owned the Apple Authorized Training Center in Phoenix for about a decade, and I was doing software development and that kind of stuff. But I kept getting pulled back So by the mid 90s, I pulled back into the farming arena. In fact, in 1989, I bought my house in Phoenix that I lived at for 32 years that became the urban farm, started growing fruit trees. That's what I was mostly interested in.
It's interesting, though, you work for a company called Apple, and they're a fruit. Last time I checked, an apple's still a fruit, right? Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
I actually didn't work for them, but I worked with them for sure.
So worked with them, worked around them, but you're still in, I guess I just think it's kind of ironic working around a fruit company still. I just found the humor in that.
And I'm looking at you on an Apple computer right now. So,
and am I looking at you as well on an Apple computer, right?
There you go.
With Thanksgiving on the horizon, for those of us that live in the United States, when you think about Thanksgiving, the story is accurate, at least the one that I grew up around, which was the Pilgrims and the Indians came together, or the Native Americans came together, and they had this bountiful feast. I know that's the fairy tale Thanksgiving I get for some. It maybe wasn't really like that. In my mind, I still want to be a little more positive, a little more. When you think about that type of environment, what does that do in your mind as far as that imagery goes? Be something that we're missing maybe in America, or is it something that we already have and we just don't realize it?
I think in a lot of cases, it's something we already have and we don't realize it. And what comes to mind for me is local food. First of all, how much of my own food can I grow? One of the big reasons that I moved from Phoenix, Arizona to Asheville, North Carolina was, number one, I was looking for quiet. And number two, I was looking to see how much of my own food I could actually grow. I was doing a pretty good job in Phoenix. As you mentioned earlier, growing food in the desert might be a little bit difficult. Figuring out the food flow through my life is what comes to mind. How can I make an entire salad from my yard? I actually have grown, interestingly enough, a couple of turkeys that I grew from chicks to plate, and I butchered them, gone through that process, and it has deeply appreciate the process, how they get from where they come from to my plate.
What's fascinating to me is I've never been the farmer. I mean, I've sang the song Farmer in the Dell. I've seen the song The Farmer Has a Dog and Bingo is his name-o. I've done farming activities per se, like I've played in the dirt, not very often because I don't like getting my hands dirty. I've owned overalls a time or two. Those are pictures and imagery for me of what a farmer is.
Mm-hmm.
None of those are accurate, I'm sure. I mean, let's face it, you've kind of already mentioned you're a little older in years. Without saying you're older in years, you're kind of dating yourself in some respects with talking about the journey that you've been on. Who picks up that baton and becomes the new urban farmer?
That is in big part why I do the Urban Farm podcast, to inspire people. I had a gentleman on my podcast about a year and a half ago. 3 years ago, he was getting ready to retire, and he started a garden because he was listening to my podcast. He started a 10 by 10 garden, then it was a 20 by 40 garden, and then it was a 50 by 100 foot garden. Wow is right. And then he had so much abundance coming from that garden that he was listening to my podcast one day, and it was about going to the market, actually harvesting your food and taking it to the market. So he decided to do that. After that was all said and done, he emailed me and he said, "Greg, I'd like to share my story." So for me, that was a major, major win. This desire for me goes back to 1991. I did a course at a place called Landmark Education, and they called it their advanced course, where they have you create a vision for your life. The vision that I created 34 years ago, was I am the person on the planet responsible for transforming our global food system. Our global food system is in dire straits, and that's my task. Now, I'm not going to do it on my own. So I had to look back and look forward to see how can I facilitate that transformation. And for me, it's a podcast. I've been doing this for 10 years, over 900 episodes. Touching people that way really lights me up. It creates a regenerative system, a system that will recreate itself after me. I mentioned my fruit tree education program in Phoenix. I've been running it for 25 years, and then people can get fruit trees from us. And I continue to do that every winter. I go back to Phoenix for the month of January. I have a team in place that if I was no longer here, nothing would change. They would take it over and keep running it forward. As an entrepreneur, I've had 30 or more businesses in my life. Some of them lasted a sneeze. bees. I've had two that lasted over 25 years now. As an entrepreneur, that's one of our dreams, is how can we create something that will outlive me and continue to contribute to the world?
With any type of farming or any type of harvesting or any type of growth type activities, there are setbacks.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you combat the setbacks? And maybe how does that relate to maybe somebody outside of gardening that they could glean from or harvest from that experience and maybe apply it to other areas of their life?
Interesting you should ask this question. In my podcast, one of the questions that I asked my guests is, tell me about a time you failed, how you overcame that failure, and what you learned from it. The only time failures are true failures is when we don't learn from them. In 2004, I took on a new project. I called it Urban Farm Nursery back then, and we were raising plant starts. And in the end of 2003, we set up a system where we raised 80,000 4-inch plant starts. Those are basil, lettuce, that kind of stuff. With the trajectory, those plants would be available to sell in February. And now 80,000 is a crazy number to start with on a small business. January rolls around, the plants are small, it's too early to sell them. February and March, it rains every weekend. I end March with about 50,000 plants left over. I'm stuck. First of all, I lost about 60 grand on that adventure. This is where the question comes from for my podcast, is from that incident happening to me. And what I learned from that was I really didn't want to be in that business. Secondly, as a lifelong entrepreneur, I should have known not to go that deep into it. We should have raised 8,000 to start, then we would have been in great shape. Having those experiences made me a richer business person, made me a richer entrepreneur, made me a richer human being. What I promise you, I know this to be a fact. I've killed more plants than you have. And I've probably killed more plants than 99% of the people that are listening. It's just part of the process. People say, I've got a black thumb. Well, you only have a black thumb because you're not learning from the process. Learn from it, make it a success out of what didn't turn out so great.
So is there a plant or is there a vegetable? Is there a fruit that is Greg's favorite? Does he have favorites? Is he allowed to have favorites?
Oh, yes. I actually frame it out this way. My 3 favorite days of the year. First day of peaches, first day of watermelons, and first day of navel oranges. And they happen at different times of the year, which is really nice. When I was in Phoenix, the peaches came along around mid to end of May. The watermelons came along around July 1st. 4th of July timeframe. The citrus comes this time of year, in November. And the other part of that question is, if I grow it, it's my favorite. Last year, I learned how to make sourdough bread. In the first 6 months of making sourdough bread, I made over 50 loaves. Every single one of them was my favorite. If you're growing it, if you're making it, it's going to be your favorite.
Are you only growing things that provide food, such as peaches, watermelon, the things of that, maybe summer squash, things of that nature? Or are you growing trees and plants and Christmas trees and things of that nature too?
If you can't eat it, why grow it? It doesn't make sense to me from a living on the planet perspective to spend time, energy, and money to grow a lawn or to grow plants you can't eat. That being said, I interviewed Lisa Ziegler on my podcast a few years ago, and she says that 20% of your garden should be pollinators. Pollinator flowers. I went back to college late in life, 39 when I went back to get my bachelor's degree. And while I was going to college, it was 1999, I was growing food in my front and backyard and taking it to a farmer's market once a week. One of the things that I grew and took to the farmer's market were flowers. And they were the first thing to go every week. I grow pollinators some, but mostly food.
Well, I asked that kind of selfishly. In North Carolina, they have a lot of dogwood trees.
Oh, yes.
And that's my favorite kind of tree. In fact, when we get to the level of getting grass at my house, we still don't have it yet. I've asked my wife repeatedly, can we please get a dogwood tree? I want a dogwood tree because it reminds me of North Carolina.
Of course. And they're beautiful. And interestingly enough, they are one of the first trees to bloom out every spring.
That's fun. I didn't know that. See?
Yeah,
Dogwood fact 1. I'm sure there will be many more to come, perhaps.
there you go.
If I somehow put you in charge of our agricultural area, I don't even know what that would be on a national level.
Hmm.
What's the main, maybe 5 areas that has you concerned as a citizen in this great nation that we're in, that maybe a lot of folks maybe aren't aware of, that maybe could be educated on? Again, maybe 5 things we could get better at as a society or as citizens ourselves.
So I'm going to boil it down to one. And that one has multiple aspects. I've said for years, the most important thing we can be doing right now, and I said this 10 years ago, and I'm saying it today, is learn where our food comes from and how to grow your own. The, with a capital T, solution, broken global food system is growing food in our front and backyards. It can be easier than you think. In fact, I'm going to throw this at you. What is the most expensive thing to buy in the grocery store and the easiest thing to grow?
Eggs? I don't know. Lettuce?
Eggs are a challenge. Basil. And isn't it nice to have fresh basil aside on so many things? You can literally grow basil in a sunny windowsill in a pot. I've done it before. That would be one thing. Grow your own food. Always grow that which you love. That's number 2. If you're growing something like an eggplant, I don't like eggplants. I'm not interested. I've never really grown eggplants or okra for that matter. I pick and grow the things that I love to grow. Grow something simple, grow what you love. Got some great friends that live down the street and they're just not interested in growing their own food. Go to the farmer's market. In Oregon, in Asheville, in Phoenix, there's farmers markets everywhere. Get to know your farmers and get to know how they're growing their food. Food that's in season is going to be picked at the peak of ripeness. It's going to be better nutritionally for you. So get to know your farmers. Another piece of this is called a CSA, Community Supported Agriculture. I'm striving for 5 here. So this is number 4, get a CSA box. A CSA box is working with your local farmer and they put together a box with a bunch of things in it every week. And you get one of these boxes every week. Number 5 is plant a fruit tree. Pick a fruit tree that you love and plant a fruit tree. You're not going to get fruit for the first couple of years. If you do it right, in year 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, year 50, you're going to be getting an amazing amount of fruit off of that tree. I had an apple tree in the backyard at the urban farm in Phoenix, growing in the desert. It was an Anna apple tree. I used to harvest 200 to 300 pounds of apples off of that tree every year. So I got really good at making apple butter, apple sauce, apple cider, the non-alcoholic kind, apple chips. That was my favorite thing to make. This last season, fall of 2024, I purchased local apples here in Asheville, 100 pounds of them, and I converted them to apple chips. So I took 100 pounds of apple chips and I got maybe a half a dozen gallon jars of, once they were dehydrated, they were gone by May. I love apple chip. There you go. There's 5 things you can do. And it all is involved around what I call the local food economy.
So I found this quote. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. It's pretty good. It says, growing your own food is like printing your own money. Is that an accurate statement or are they way off base?
That wildly accurate. I've said for years, I have a lot of things that I say for years.
Well, you're old. Let's be honest.
Right, exactly.
Say that respectfully. You are older.
No disrespect taken. I fully embrace my 65-year-oldness. I'm good with that. The only place, pregnant pause here, the only place on the planet that lack lives is between our ears. Because when I look at fruit trees, that apple tree, 200 to 300 pounds a year. There were years on that apple tree that I actually harvested the apples and I sold them. When I look at the amount of lettuce that we harvested lettuce in the spring of this year for months. Amount of abundance that comes off of these plants, and then the amount of seed abundance that comes off of these plants is mind-blowing. Growing your own food is absolutely like printing your own money. In fact, I think it's better because you can't eat money.
Probably wouldn't be very good. The fiber in it probably would be pretty bad. What legacy do you hope to leave? You've touched some lives.
Yeah.
You've planted some seeds, pun intended.
Yeah. You know, I have had this conversation going on in my head for about 20 years. It started around 2004. And as an entrepreneur, starting when I was 15. 2004 was 30 years later. As an entrepreneur, I strive for more. How much do you want to make? Well, I want to make $1 million. When you make that million, well, I want to make 10 million. I believe it comes at a cost to our health, to our life. I look back at that striving and it exhausted me. In 2004, I started having this conversation with a few close friends. How much is enough? Do I have enough? Am I enough? And it literally took me 20 years to 2024. The fall of 2024, I signed up at my church for this class called Spiritual Economics. We're looking at that, the enoughness. So the questions that came up for me about a year ago were, am I enough? Have I contributed enough? Do I have enough? Have I made enough money? Discovered and came to the conclusion that the answer to all 4 of those questions was yes. And when I did that, it freed me up tremendously. It freed me up spiritually. It gave me permission to not do something, to take a nap in the middle of a day, to be happy. That's part of the legacy I want to leave behind is enoughness. I was just a little over 9 years into the podcast then, and a little over 800 episodes. This podcasting is an incredible medium. You know this. It's an incredible, he's shaking his head yes, emphatically. It is an incredible medium to change people's life. Both you and I do it in a particular way. We're storytellers. What I do is I share people's stories and I just hold it out. I'm holding out my hand in front of me right now and say, look at this. Isn't this cool? You could be doing this. In this case, we're talking growing food in your yard. I offer it up as a gift to people rather than being in their face saying, you got to do this. I offer it up as a gift to, try this. Try basil in the windowsill. I guarantee you that you're going to have listeners that are going to follow up in 2026 and say, I tried basil in a windowsill and it worked. And that's the difference that we can make. So I've left my legacy. I've done what I needed to do. That doesn't mean I'm done. It just means that I've made this huge contribution that I've made. And yeah, there'll probably be more in this for another good 30 years, I think. I am happy and content and at peace with what I have created and what I've contributed. And there's some moments where it comes along and it's like, ooh, I want to do this. So then I look at that, but I'm happy.
You don't strike me as a soda drinker.
Not at all.
Well, years ago, there was an athlete that came into the NBA. His name's Kobe Bryant. He's since passed, became the spokesperson for Sprite, the soft drink. And Sprite had this really clever tagline, which I really like. Obey your thirst.
I remember that.
A little bit of this season kind of maybe borrows a little bit from Sprite. The idea of what are we thirsting for? What are we hungering for? And right now, I feel like in this world that we're living in, what you just described, the legacy that you hope to leave, I think there are still those in their mid-40s, hand up on that one for me, that are still striving to make that lasting impact, to make that lasting legacy, Googling or going to the chats or to the AI prompts. How do I find fulfillment? How do I find to be enough? Now I'm going to take it personal. How have you found that fulfillment? I know away from the farming, away from all the stuff that you've grown, where was that inner, I found the fulfillment, I found that thing I was thirsting for? Where did you find it in? Outside of farming, and again, maybe outside of planting?
Yeah, that's a very long, pregnant pause. Here we are back at the gift and curse of what I'm supposed to be doing on the planet, which is transforming our food system that has been with me, as we discovered, for the entirety of my life. Outside of that, I'm a runner and walker. I've done over 40 half marathons, which means, yep, I'm only half crazy. I'm not fully crazy. I've never done a full marathon. I have a pooch. Her name is Kismet. I don't have any kids, but she's my kid. Having her in my life is a delight. I met the love of my life in 2013 on a blind date. I'll tell you, Heidi was the person that I spent 30 years looking for. Having a deep, spiritual, fun relationship with Heidi is amazing. Growing things outside of my desire to transform the planet, our food system on the planet, just growing things is fun. I interviewed, so here's an interesting story. I interviewed Samara Price. She's a elderberry purveyor in Asheville. She makes products from elderberries. I had her on the podcast in December of 2022. And I asked her, so where do you get all your elderberries from? She says to me, well, I get a few here and a few there, but most of them come from Europe. And it was like, what? Entrepreneur coming out in me. The next thing that I said after what was, well, heck, I can grow elderberries. I didn't have a clue how to grow elderberries. Figured it was a plant, I could grow it. Within 3 months, I had 100 elderberries in pots and 98 of them grew into plants. This summer represented the second year they were in the ground. I'm an elderberry farmer, so I know it has to do with food again. I've had over 30 businesses in my life. What I do is I come up with an idea and I go make it happen. Like I said, some of them were over in a snap, miserable failures, others years or decades. That for me is fulfilling and fun as well.
I think that's the hard part in life is people don't want to fail. People
Right.
don't like failure. Nobody says when they start their day or they start their week or they start the month, you know what? Gosh darn it, I am hungering for some failure. I've yet to meet a person that has said that.
Yeah.
Tastes nasty. Failure tastes awful.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one time as a kid, I did something bad. I probably said something stupid to my mom. She put soap in my mouth. It's still one of the nastiest things that's ever happened to me. We also had a family friend that would watch us as kids. We were younger, and she would put Tabasco in our mouth when we would lie. Well, I lied a lot as a kid, so I got a lot of Tabasco. And to this day, I love Tabasco sauce because of that reason.
Oh, interesting.
When she realized Tabasco was no longer effective, she went to vanilla extract, which, by the way, is nasty. Don't try it at home. Again, this nasty taste, this nasty flavor in our mouth, this nastiness that I think some people just have come accustomed to that. That's how life's going to be. It's just going to taste gross. It's just going to be icky. Blech. For me, peas, I know you probably love peas because, you know, they come out of the ground and you probably love them. I hate them. Bananas, same. Don't like them. When I think of those things, now granted, not together, peas and bananas together would be awful. By themselves, they're just as awful, for the record. The idea for me, eating a banana or eating some peas is just gross. Like, it's just a nasty taste. It's like failure to me, putting that on a level. Talked about these failed businesses. You talked about maybe some failures in your life personally and professionally. Yet you still, metaphorically speaking, put on the overalls, put on the farmer boots, put on maybe the gloves. Maybe you don't wear gloves, which makes my hands just cringy already. The thing about you is again, you figure it out a way to continue to say, okay, that was a bad taste. That was a bad failure. You continue to move forward. How did you do that?
Failures make us more rounded people. If you look at people in my life, and I have somebody really close in my life that is a relative that hasn't failed very much. He doesn't stretch out very much. He's not very well-rounded. So I think failure makes us more well-rounded. I started at a young age. I had a paper out when I was 9. I started my first official business when I was 15. I practiced. When you fail, it takes a deep breath and practice to say, okay, well, that didn't work. What else can we do? So I think to answer your question, at a very young age, I had a lot of experiences of that failure. Just like with the Tabasco sauce, it's like, all right, well, hold on. That failed? What can I create next? What can I do next? How can I make something else from this? Out of the failure of the plant business came my fruit tree education program in Phoenix. We sell for 25 years, not the first few years, but these days, we sell over 4,000 fruit trees a year in Phoenix. They all get delivered in January. That came out of my plant start failure. Still called Urban Farm Nursery. Was doing fruit trees back then, but I was doing them a little. That really propelled me into getting people a lot of fruit trees in their yard. Taste the Tabasco and keep going, baby.
Love it. Well, Greg, as we wrap up today, how can someone learn about farming if they're wanting to become the next urban farmer? They don't have to wear overalls, although it is somewhat of a suggestion, I feel like, on my part.
I've never worn them.
Never worn them once? Oh,
Not
man,
once.
That's breaking my stereotype of all the farming life. Please tell me you have at least a straw hat, right?
I do.
Okay. Overalls are optional. Straw hat is a requirement. If someone's hearing you right now and they want to, again, duplicate, maybe start small, little section of their yard, turn it into the next iteration of the urban farmer, how can someone start, and what's the best way maybe someone can connect with you to maybe get some gardening tips and some know-how and some ideas on what they can plant?
Perfect. First of all, urbanfarm.org is my website, and all of the URLs that I'm about ready to mention all point back to urbanfarm.org. If all else fails, check out urbanfarm.org. We have an education page on urbanfarm.org with some courses. We have 7 different courses, kind of guide you through the process of growing your own food and starting an urban farm. It doesn't have to be an urban farm. It can be a rural farm. We have a few paid courses. The Urban Farm Podcast, over 900 episodes. Just jump in. If you're interested in doing fish farming, I got episodes on that. Straw bale gardener, I got episodes on that. Just jump in and start listening. And then if you're in the low desert, fruittrees.org is my fruit tree program in Phoenix, Arizona.
My last thing that I wanted to leave us with, again, Thanksgiving on the horizon, just around the corner. What would you say that you're most thankful for maybe in life right now?
My relationship with my partner, Heidi, my connection to Mother Nature and God, my realization and continued trust that I am enough.
Wow, those are some great things to be thankful for. Well, Greg, again, thank you so much for educating us and maybe reminding us that it really isn't that difficult. There are ways that we can get better. There are ways we can hone that skill. Whether we've killed flowers and plants in the past, we can look at that like a Tabasco moment, like it was a bad taste, but we're ready to plant again and grow again.
Absolutely.
Well, again, man, thanks so much for being here today. We really appreciate all that you gave and all that you shared.
Neil, thank you so much. I listened to your podcast and I love the inspiration coming out of it.
Oh, that's very kind. All right, guys and gals, kids and campers alike. Maybe I should say kids and farmers alike. We could change it. Kids and farmers alike. That has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? You know, years ago, when I was growing up in a church, our phrase, our catchphrase, our tagline, whatever you want to say, was neighborhood church, come grow with us. And so I'm wondering about that for you today. Is today the day that maybe you start some growth? Maybe it is with plants. Maybe it is with a tree. Or I know this is an even bigger thing. Maybe it's with you. Maybe there's still some areas in your life that you're like, man, I could use some growth in that area. Maybe food is still that thing that you're struggling with. You're on the struggle bus and you're really thinking, can I really grow out of that obsession, that hunger, that addiction? There is room for growth. Last time I checked, as long as you're still breathing, you still have an opportunity to grow. Maybe that's our challenge this week is how can we grow together? After all, let's try it. Let's all do it. Come grow with us. Come grow with us together. You're not alone in this journey. There's help. There's people. Let us know. OPSpodcast.com is a great place to let us know. You can let us know also on the socials at OPS Podcast Show on our Facebook, Instagram, and X. And don't forget this. This is a grow moment right here. Remember, when you walk in other people's shoes, you really do get a different perspective on life. Thank you so much for listening. And guess what? Stay tuned till next week when we grow. When we walk in other people's shoes.